It seems as though MAGA Republicans, all of a sudden, freedom of speech goes out the window if they don't like the message, right? If they're okay with the message, then they want to cry freedom of speech and how they're being censored. But when you see thousands of people across the country that are protesting peacefully anti-Donald Trump, anti-Elon Musk, somehow they have a problem with that, Governor.
Yeah, they do have a problem. They have a problem with the message, and then they have a problem with the person that's delivering the message, which is really unfair. It's becoming more and more difficult. People are frustrated. General people, when you see what happens at UNLV, where some students had their visas pulled, you see some research grants get pulled. These are impacting everyday lives, and as time goes by, more and more things are going to impact the lives, whether it's the price of groceries or the price of things when you go to the store.
Former governor of the great state of Nevada. I want to get his thoughts on tariffs and the economy. It is a pleasure to speak to Governor Steve Sisolak, who joins us right now on the program. Governor, thank you so much for joining us. How are you today?
I'm terrific. It's always a pleasure to be with you. How's everything going?
Well, the economy is not going very well right now. I'm doing okay, but let's talk a little bit about that, Governor. And I appreciate you being here. Did you ever think that we'd be in the position that we are in now, where you would have a sitting president threaten 100%, 104% tariffs on China? Like, what goes through your mind as a policy man and a policymaker, for a big portion of your life? What is going through your mind when you hear these things, Governor?
It really boggles the mind to think that this is happening to us, in real time that we're facing. He's not making these decisions alone. I don't know who his inside advisors are, if it's Navarro, if it's Musk, whomever it might be. But these are major decisions that are really impacting people's lives. When you see what's happened with the economy, 401ks are crashing. Somebody that's retiring has been wiped out. I mean, their market valuation has gone by half. It's going to affect every single state. If you look at Nevada, for example, we've got a great treasurer in Zach Conine. But that being said, he's invested this money. We're counting on return from that money to use those revenues in terms of operation. Our PERS pension fund, you're talking tens of billions of dollars is invested. You start reducing the rate of return on that by 2, 3, 4%, which is happening, and those stock values plummeting. It's going to have long-term impact. Not to mention the fact that when you're talking about tourists from overseas, overseas travelers provide a big portion of it's not the biggest percentage of our numbers of gaming, the static number, but they do a lot of big dollar gambling. Those folks are going to start pulling back. And that's going to affect the tourism on the Strip. So this is going to hit us from several angles, without a doubt.
Governor, you had to work for a period of time with the Trump administration first go around. So I'm going to ask you this. Why do you think he is doing this? What do you think is the reasoning behind Donald Trump doing this?
I think that he's emboldened by the last election, winning all the swing states and coming out with so many electoral votes in the way that he did. I think he feels emboldened. He's found that he can do this. He seems to have the support of the Supreme Court moving forward. And this is just his plan to, like I say, to go ahead and make an impact. This is what he wants for his legacy, I guess. Yeah. I think that he honestly believes that in the long run, these tariffs are going to be beneficial for us in terms of working out deals. He wants to be a deal maker, wants to call all these people in his office to have them come and kiss the ring and make some kind of deal. And it'll be interesting if these other countries are going to do that or not.
Yeah, I mean, I don't consider our governor, Governor Lombardo, a huge MAGA supporter, but I also believe that he says what he needs to say because he understands if he criticizes Donald Trump, he's going to lose support. That's really the entire Republican Party today. Would you agree with that for the most part?
I do agree with that, but I know he has on numerous occasions said he believes that President Trump is doing a good job. What he classifies, how you define a good job, I don't know. Yeah. I think that when you start seeing the impact of what these cuts are going to do to the state of Nevada, whether it's in research money, whether it's in, Medicaid money, whatever it might be, wherever it's coming from, these are going to have real world impacts on various states. And Nevada is, I think, at the top of the list in terms of those states that are going to be impacted tremendously.
Yeah. What do you make of, let's just talk about due process for a moment, specifically these people that were sent to these El Salvador prisons. We're learning now, based on a 60 Minutes report that's been verified, that 70% of those people that were sent to this prison in El Salvador do not have a criminal record, Governor. What do you make of that? And what type of country are we living in today where these people do not have any due process at all?
Well, I think it's really deplorable when you think about it. You think that it's not just these people, it's the impact on these families that this is having. This is breaking up families that who knows if they'll ever be reunited again. I don't know how these people were selected. how they were, gathered up, whatnot, how that all works. But it seems like we've got the horse ahead of the cart a little bit in terms of people. United States has always been an area, country of due process, of people getting their say so, having opportunities, and we seem to have lost some of that along the way here.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. If you're just joining us, former governor of the great state of Nevada, Steve Sisolak. So, Governor, there were a lot of people, particularly those on the right, that criticized you, and I thought a lot of it was very unfair during COVID. You listened to actual, real professionals, medical professionals. You took their advice, and you had very difficult decisions to make. You were in a very difficult spot, as a lot of governors were in at that time. I feel like in the Trump administration, Donald Trump in particular, he doesn't listen to credible people. He listens to the Laura Loomers of the world and the Stephen Millers of the world. He doesn't listen to actual, real, credible people with experience. And it seems as though he just listens to himself and maybe a few Looney Tunes on the far right. I mean, to me, the way you governed is, and the way a lot of people govern, the opposite of the way Donald Trump wants the country. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think that, I know that I focused on, relying on experts, whether that dealt with, medical issues, educational issues, financial issues, whatever it might have been. I took that information in, I assimilated as best as possible, and ultimately I made a decision. But I surrounded myself with people that didn't agree with me. I mean, we didn't necessarily agree, but when we put it all together, and you might not like how the sausage is made, but it's okay when it comes out on the other end. Donald Trump seems to have surrounded himself with people that agree with where he stands and how he wants to do things. And those are the people that get attention. Right now, you're seeing with Elon Musk today called Navarro, I don't know.
Moron. Yeah.
A moron. There you go. Thank you. I think you're starting to see some cracks in some of these relationships and some of these things that are happening. And I don't know what the future is going to hold, but when you're talking about tariffs that are 100% he's adding on, and they're coming in and out. And I think with business needs continuity and they need consistency. Yeah. And that's not happening here. There are tariffs, there aren't tariffs. They're on, they're off. This country has these, this country has those. To try to put that all together for these corporations is extremely difficult. And I think that everyday citizens are going to start seeing the price impact of what some of these decisions are going to be.
Agree with you. It's interesting, Governor, because obviously you would never condone violence. Neither would I. We had these Tesla vehicles that were set on fire here in Las Vegas. And obviously there's no prominent Democrat in office that has condoned that behavior, right? But if you listen to what some of these people on the far right are saying, they're saying that somehow we're celebrating this. I'm sure you could find a couple whack jobs out there that would. But at the same time, explain this to me, Governor. Why is it that if you light a Tesla car on fire, which we don't condone, that makes you a domestic terrorist? But if you beat Capitol police officers on January 6th, according to Donald Trump and his base, that somehow makes you a patriot. Explain that to me.
Well, I don't know what their definition of patriot is when you're talking about anybody that takes these physical actions against police officers and the Capitol Police, and any law enforcement official should be held in disdain. I mean, and I'm with you, I totally disagree the idea of lighting somebody's car on fire, a Tesla, in terms of a protest. You want to protest and make a sign and go picket and walk in front of a dealership or in front of the courthouse, federal courthouse, whatever it might be. That's fine. That's the way to demonstrate and to voice your opinions. But the violence is something that we've never condoned, we've never supported, and that's not going to change.
Yeah, you saw a lot of peaceful protest, right, over the weekend, and we had a large protest on the Strip in Las Vegas. Nobody was injured. Nobody was hurt. There was no violence. My understanding, no arrests. But yet it seems as though MAGA Republicans, all of a sudden, freedom of speech goes out the window if they don't like the message, right? If they're okay with the message, then they want to cry freedom of speech and how they're being censored. But when you see thousands of people across the country that are protesting peacefully, anti-Donald Trump, anti-Elon Musk, somehow they have a problem with that, Governor.
Yeah, they do have a problem. They have a problem with the message, and then they have a problem with the person that's delivering the message, which is really unfair. It's becoming more and more difficult. People are frustrated. General people, when you see what happened at UNLV, where some students had their visas pulled, you see some research grants get pulled. These are impacting everyday lives, and as time goes by, more and more things are going to impact the lives, whether it's the price of groceries or the price of things when you go to the store, whether it's the cost of gasoline, whatever it might be, people losing their jobs, inflation going up. All of these assorted things are going to make a long-term impact. Like I say, this is going to have the impact on pensions and returns for people in their 401ks that is enormous. And I think a lot of people haven't taken a look at what's happened to their 401k since talk about these tariffs has started. But it's a scary thing to see. It's scary to see when you're getting ready to retire. If you're young, if you're your age, if you're young, you're in your 30s, your 40s, you got a lot of time to come back decades and get recoup this money. If you're going to retire this year, next year, you're planning to buy a house or pay for your kids' college, that's who it's really going to impact. That's what's going to have a difference. And hopefully people won't panic. They won't sell things and lose a bunch of money. And we got to hope for things to turn around here sooner rather than later.
Governor, I'm just curious. This will be my last question for you. If you had the opportunity, not even as a politician, just as an everyday American that loves this country as much as I know you do, and you had the opportunity to speak to Donald Trump privately, I'm just curious at this point, as a father and a husband and the former governor of the state of Nevada, what would you say to him, if anything? Like, what would you want to convey to Donald Trump right now, 2 months into his second administration?
I would tell him that first off, I understand the pressures of the job that he's under. It's got to be just absolutely enormous. But I would encourage him to step back, take a moment, take a deep breath, and start talking to and listening to some people that disagree with you, that have other ideas, that don't conform with what you think the way of thought should be. And listen to some of those people and put that into context and understand that this is having, I think when you're president, I don't know, but you're isolated. You're not in tune with what everyday people are dealing with. You're not in tune with having to pay for your kids to go to college or having to plan about buying a car, or make a house payment, or go grocery shopping. And I think he needs to get some of that real world experience and everyday issues in the forefront and think about that, how this is really impacting his life. These aren't just numbers. When you talk about laying off 10,000 people here or 50,000 people here, these are jobs and families and careers that are going to have long-term implications as a result of that. And I think somewhere along the way, that's gotten lost in all the rhetoric.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you. Governor, always appreciate your time. Thank you so much for being here. And I know I'll probably see you at an Aces game down the road. Appreciate it very much, my friend. And I know I certainly miss you as governor. I'll tell you that much. And I know a lot of other people in the state of Nevada do as well. Governor Steve Sisolak, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you.
It's always a pleasure. Thanks, Brad. Look forward to seeing you again.
Thanks, Governor. Appreciate you. There you go, everybody. That's Governor Steve Sisolak joining us. And I'm being very perfectly honest with you. I do miss him as governor of the state of Nevada. I thought he did a good job considering the very difficult circumstances under COVID. He did the best job that he could under a difficult spot that he was put in.